Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Hi there, it's Simone Morris, host of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I hope everyone is doing well and ready for an excellent week and ready for your dose of career empowerment and inspiration to soar in your career. This week, I'm so pleased to have with us Denise Hamilton, who is a nationally recognized diversity and inclusion leader specializing in ally training. Denise is the founder and CEO of Watch Her Work, a digital learning platform for professional women. She's a highly requested speaker and trainer, as well as a media personality whose platform has reached and served people all over the world. Denise has over 25 years of executive experience with Fortune 500 organizations. Denise, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Well, I like to jump right in as soon as I start the interview. I've read your bio. You were doing some amazing things, and just the name, Watch Her Work, means that we need to watch you work. So how did you know that you are in the driver's seat for your career?
You know, I've always assumed responsibility for my career. I was always kind of puzzled by people who were waiting for someone else to come along, someone else to come in and save the day. That just had never been my experience. My experience had been, you better step up and take a hold of this by yourself, because otherwise it's just not going to happen. So I have always had a pattern of being responsible, assuming that key responsibility. That means building the right relationships. That means, entertaining the right opportunities. It means overcoming your own fears. It means getting out of your own way. Like, it's really specific for me, that journey of kind of what every decision, the filter that every decision goes through, of whether or not I do it or I don't do it. And I kind of have as an overarching principle that I'm in charge of me, nobody else is.
How did you get there? What sort of training have you done to prepare yourself to be able to make decisions in this astute way?
I think that I am a master observer, right? And I think you have to observe your reality, observe your world. And my observation led me to believe, if I was waiting for someone to come along and promote me, if I was waiting for someone to come along and give me VC money, or if I was waiting for somebody to come along to do these things that were going to transform my career, I might be waiting a minute, right? So it just occurred to me that if you want something, you're going to have to get it yourself. So to me, it's like looking at my actual environment and seeing who's winning and who's not, who's successful and who isn't, and what are those people doing. Now, some of those paths, they're not for me. I can't follow that route. I can't call my rich daddy's friend and get a position at the blah, 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 or get that internship at the such and such and such, which meant I had to build great relationships. I had to find mentors that would sow into me, and I had to prove to them that I was worth sowing into, right? So you kind of find out pretty early that excuses don't really work. You've got to be really disciplined, and you've got to have a little, courageous streak of jumping off of that bridge every now and then, and trusting that your ability is going to catch you. You'll survive. If you go splat, you'll get back up and you'll start that the next day. But I think it's really important to look around and look for the trends, look for the systems, look for the observable environment, and make your plans based upon that.
Wonderful. And I'm still curious about where this comes from, because it sounds easier than it actually is to get out of your own way. I love that you were saying we've got to be careful about not being in our own way and moving past the fear. Mm-hmm. So as a young child, I've heard people say different things about when this comes up for them. So when did this come up for you? Was it when you were young in the Girl Scouts or something like that? Where just that determination that you are going to succeed no matter what?
I actually don't think I'm going to succeed no matter what. I think I'll succeed if I work hard. Right? Like, and I think if I'm persistent, I think I've seen, first of all, I guess I've always been like this, because it's hard to articulate, like, how can you not be like this? I don't really understand people that wait around for somebody to notice them. I remember I said this from stage once. I speak to large audiences all the time, and the audience reacted so oddly to me. And for me, it was like, we're speaking a different language, because I was like, this is obvious. But they were like, this is revolutionary. I said, this idea that you are going to just work hard and put your head down, and then they're going to notice me one day. They're going to notice my efforts and my achievements and my accomplishments. And I said, get over yourself. You're not that important. Your boss has 10 other direct reports. That boss has their own family. That boss also has their own supervisors that they've got to react to and respond to. You are a tiny cog in their big old wheel, right? And so it's ridiculous they're sitting around thinking, I wonder what Denise is doing today. They don't care at all. They want you to do well, but you have to elevate these discussions. You have to toot your own horn. You have to run your commercial. There's a reason that Coca-Cola spends billions of dollars on advertising, because if they skip a week, you might forget about Coca-Cola, right? You are in charge of promoting your own brand all the time. It is the most egocentric thing in the world to think, oh, somebody's just going to notice me. No, they're not. They're not. And it was interesting to me that the audience was like, this is such a revolutionary concept. And this is just how I think. I really firmly believe on a foundational level that it is critical for you to tell your own story. We are shaped by our stories, and you cannot let someone else define what your story is. Consequently, you always have to be out there presenting yourself, taking the risks, stepping into the new rooms, giving yourself opportunities to shine. What is that famous quote? Ships are safest in the port, but that's not what ships are for. Right? And if you just play it safe all the time, if you always take the easiest path, the quietest path, you're not going to be seen or heard. And for some people, that's okay. But if you want to have an extraordinary career, you're going to have to do some extraordinary stuff. You're going to have to do some things that are a little scary and a little challenging. I've never been punished for failure. And maybe that's a big factor in why I think the way I do, because most people that I work with or interact with professionally, they admire the effort. They always respect your hustle. They expect the approach. You don't do anything extraordinary by doing it the way it's always been done. So how can you get extraordinary results if you're not really ready to have any failure ever, right? So I think so many people spend their careers in an avoidance pattern that I don't really do. I don't do that. If I crash into the wall, okay, oh, wow, that really hurt. I dust myself up and I get back up and do it again tomorrow. So it's I don't live in that avoidance space. I live in an abundance space.
I love that, because you've dropped so many gems with what you're saying. I love it because you ended with mindset. And so what sort of messages should people be telling themselves to shine in their careers?
I think that the first key mindset that you need to have is that you're valuable, right? So your company has purchased your time, your value. That's what your salary is. So if I paid to have a geologist at my table, and then I invite that geologist to the table for a meeting, I expect that geologist to talk. I expect them to contribute something to the discussion. That's the value that I have paid for. And it always strikes me when people step into these conversations and meetings, they're working on projects, and they don't say anything. They don't contribute anything. They think, oh, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Let me break it to you. They wouldn't invite you to the meeting if they didn't want to hear what you have to say. Like, your assumption should be, I have a value. You know how I know I have a value? Because they've already agreed to pay me. So I need to live up to that value. I need to exceed that value if I want to earn more, right? How do you think you're not even showing me what you can do with what you have right now, but you're crystal clear that you want more? That's not how that works, right? So you got to show me, wow, I pay her X and she's giving me X plus 5. Well, when there's a promotion, who do I want? The people that are giving me X or the people that are giving me X plus 5? It makes it really clear when it's time to pick who is coasting, who's doing the bare minimum, who's kind of waiting until someone invites them or asks them a direct question. Like, those people tend to kind of fall away, right? Because nobody wants passivity. They want you to step up to the plate. So I think there's a fundamental mindset of acknowledging your worth, your value in these conversations and in your work and in what you're doing. Because if you don't value it, no one else will either.
Absolutely.
Right? Period.
What would you say is your formula for owning your career? What are the ingredients?
Observation. Who gets up, who gets down, doing what gets graded, right? Like, once you figure out what are we graded on, right? Those are the things you need to do. And it's a sad reality, but we don't get graded on planning the office potluck or picking up the baby shower balloons and walking through the office. Those things really feed the morale of the office. It does breed cohesion. It is a contributor to the harmony in the office, but you're not graded on them. So you need to be doing the stuff you get graded on. I'm always struck by the ways that men and women are very different. And one of the key differences professionally is, let's say your job has 7 dimensions. You average your efforts across all 7 dimensions, right? I got to hire people. I've got to sell widgets. I've got to do these reports. I have to attend these meetings. I have to, like, whatever those 7 dimensions, you average your efforts across all 7, right? That's not what men do. Men talk to the boss. Yo, boss, which one do you really care about? What is the number 1 and number 2? They do number 1 and number 2, and they don't care at all about the rest of them. So they may miss all your meetings. They don't turn in the stuff they're supposed to turn into you, but the boss said sell widgets. They were supposed to sell 100, and they sold 175. So when it's time for a promotion, who gets the promotion? The person that was average across all 7, or the person that knocked it out the park on the thing I care about?
Yeah.
It feels really obvious, right? So you got to do what gets graded. And to do that, another key element is you got to establish relationships, real, authentic relationships. You got to ask some hard questions. Hey, what is the price range for that position? How do you negotiate severance? How do you, what organization should I be joining? Hey, I'd love to be on that board with you. Do they have any positions on that board? Could you nominate me? Like, you have to operationalize and activate your relationships. Otherwise, what are they for? right? So we have a lot of people that we keep at a 1 or a 2. We got to find a few people that we can go to 7 or 9, right? And really help each other. That's what I see. I talked earlier about being a good observer. I'm seeing people put each other on. I'm seeing people really activate powerful networks, really help each other. And people make a mistake in thinking the only networks are at the top. You could have networks, the secretary of somebody that you want to know could be the best ally you could ever have, right? So you got to figure out, like, how do things happen in this environment? And you better go do those things. So again, you got to observe, you got to do what gets graded, you have to establish strong relationships, and you have to do excellent work. We forget that sometimes. You have to kill the game. If you're doing a great job, that's the foundation for you to get other opportunities. But you could do all of that stuff, and if you're not doing good work, it won't matter at all.
Yep.
Right? So I think that's kind of the formula that I would give for owning your career.
Awesome advice. Awesome advice. I sort of heard the mentor blended as a mentor / sponsor. Is it really, when you're talking about activating your relationships, there are some people that I come across who are not familiar with the term sponsors. And so they know about the mentoring concept, but you need to activate, to your point, the relationship to the next level where you're actually receiving additional value as well as providing value for the person. So you need some sponsors on your career team as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I would also add, like, don't underestimate, like, there are people that are not your mentor and not your sponsor, and they can be pivotal in your career, right? If you have the courage to ask, right? Sometimes it may be, hey, John, I see that a number of a lot of your business seems to come from this group that you're in. Would you invite me to a meeting? That's not a mentor, it's not a sponsor, but maybe you get into that room and it's like, hey, I can get a lot of business out of this group too. I can build a lot of strategic relationships. Hey, I see that you're rolling off of this community board. Would you recommend me to be on that board? I see that you got a lot of opportunities out of that. Right. So it's really like, I think the mentor sponsorship conversation is incredibly important. But I also think, like, there's always opportunities around you to mine your environment, but you're going to have to get a little closer. You're going to have to ask a few key questions. You're going to have to understand what are the best practices of this culture. And, I know when I worked in commercial real estate, for example, a lot of the business was done on hunting trips and fishing trips. And I was like, how am I going to get around that? I had to observe. I had to have conversations. I had to figure out places that I could plug in and what those opportunities look like. I had to decide for myself, what do I want to do and what don't I want to do, right? So I think that it's important to find mentors. Don't walk up to them and say, will you be my mentor? That's weird. Don't do it. But I don't think you find a sponsor finds you. And how you get a sponsor is you kill the game and you impress a sponsor, and a sponsor will pick you. And I think that those relationships are critical, but I don't think that people should wait until they have those relationships to start operationalizing the relationships they have right now. I'm always amazed by how afraid people are to ask their acquaintances, their relationships, for things that cost them nothing. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And if I've known Lisa for 10 years, it's ridiculous that I can't say, hey, Lisa, can you tell me who in your company I could send a proposal to? Or could you make a email introduction so I could jump in that person's, a call, get on their calendar for a 15-minute call. If you can't get somebody you've known for 10 years to do that, you have really invested, that was a wasted relationship, right? Because literally that is not a difficult, complicated ask. So I think that we are sometimes afraid to ask for people to help, ask for them to sow into us in the places that we need to be sown into, ask for feedback. Even that, hey, I'm working on this package. I'm working on my resume. I'm applying for this position within your company. Could you take a look at it and make sure that I'm aligning with your company culture, right? Those are things that should be really low-hanging fruit, right? But if you don't have people in your network that are willing to do those things for you, you need to reassess who's a part of your network, how much, what the balance is of your relationship. I always say givers have to set limits because takers never do. Right? And so you can be the giver and you're helping everybody with all their stuff, but when it's time for you to get some help, you can't find anybody. And if that's the situation you're in, you need to clean house a little bit and recalibrate, try to create deeper relationships, because one thing I'm seeing about successful people is they have powerful networks that act and operate on their behalfs. And that's what we have to cultivate every single day.
How does one cultivate, or how does help our listeners to understand how you build the ASK muscles? Because you talked about having the fear. I love the simplicity of the example you used about the 10-year relationship and the authenticity of that message. So how does one build that ASK muscle so that our listeners can begin to start asking for support from their networks?
I think you get over yourself, right? It's just it's a insecurity. It's an irrational fear. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? If I ask you and you say no, I asked you and you said no, I don't have it today and I won't have it after you say no. Like it's just not that expensive. And sometimes we are afraid to ask because we don't want to damage the relationship. But I would posit that if you can't ask, you don't have a relationship. So there's nothing, you haven't lost anything, right? So I think that it's the first thing is being clear, right? So don't come to me and say, hey, Denise, I want to get on your calendar for 30 minutes because I'm thinking about getting into a career in this space, and I wondered if you could walk me through it. Sure, happy to do it. You know, call my secretary, get it on the calendar. We're all good to go. Then we sit down and you ask me 10 questions you could have Googled. What a wasted opportunity. What a waste of my time. What a waste of your time, because I'll never meet with you again if you're asking me things that the most basic effort you could have gotten. When you get to me to ask me some questions, they should be well thought out, pointed, specific, actionable things that I can do to help you, right? Because believe it or not, people want to help you. But you've got to package it and you've got to reduce friction. If anybody's taking notes from this call today, reduce friction. Help me to help you. Make it so easy, right? Let's say that you wanted me to write a recommendation letter for you. You send me a note, Denise, can you write a recommendation? And I'm like, yes, girl. In my heart, in my spirit, I want to do it. But I have 2,000 emails that came in today, 10 phone calls. I got 7 meetings tomorrow. I'm speaking here tomorrow. Like, I have so much going on. Girl, it may happen, it may not. And it may be weeks before you get that recommendation. Or, hey, Denise, would you write this recommendation letter for me? I took the liberty of writing down some bullet points of our relationship, where we met, how we met, things we've worked on together, and what the results have been, you know, other things just from my resume that might be helpful. That writes itself. I can sit down in 5 minutes and now you have your recommendation letter. It's a simple thing, but you'd be surprised how few people take responsibility for the deliverables they're asking for. You know, reduce the friction. Make it so easy for me to help you that I can't even conceive of not helping you. So the example of the proposal, can you send my proposal to someone in your company, right? So you send me the proposal and you've asked me to share this with my procurement team or my HR team or whichever team is applicable, right? But it has 50 typos in it. And it's crooked. And the company name, my company name is spelled wrong. Now I'm stressed out because what do? Do I kick it back to you? Do I forward it? because it's not my business, right? This is your product. I could just forward it, but I know that's gonna reflect on you poorly. But now I got to go back to you and raise you and say, you need to run this 2 spell check. You need to da 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 da. Like, look how hard what should be a really simple interaction has been made because you didn't put your best foot forward. So when you take the responsibility, again, that's your first question of what does it look like to take responsibility for your career, right? You make sure your stuff is tight and right. So by the time you send it to me, I'm like, oh, this looks amazing. Zoop, and I hit send. And I don't have any hesitation, right? So I think this idea of reducing friction is so important. It's so important. And so few people think in those terms. But again, I like the way you frame these conversations around taking responsibility, right? If I do what I got to do, then you'll help me because I'm winning. And everybody wants to help a winner.
So many good stuff. I actually got my notepad because I've been mulling over the title of your episode, and so many things have come to me, and I just wrote down reduce the friction because I think that is such a valuable nugget. Just, put your best foot forward and make it easier for others to help you. I want to talk about the comment about tooting your own horn. I think it's a great comment, and I use it a lot in the work that I do as well, because I believe that we must toot our own horns. And I know you've been on many, many programs. Your work is out there, so we are watching you work. So give us some tips on how to toot our own horn so that we may elevate our personal brands.
Okay, so I think that you have to speak up in meetings. People have to ascribe value to you. You can't be afraid to contribute. You can't be afraid to disagree, right? I think that is a space that we tend to really struggle. Like, Tom put forth this plan and he thinks we should do X, Y, Z. And you're like, ooh, I don't think that's going to work because of A, B, or C or whatever. You have to speak up. Even if it ends up with, we're going to go with Tom's plan. People never forget that you contributed, that you are a strategic thinker, that you're a problem solver, that you are committed to shaping the ultimate goal and the ultimate product, right? So you have to speak up in those situations. It's so valuable. No, I'll tell you what people hate. I hate nothing worse than a Monday morning quarterback. I cannot bear the person that says, oh yeah, I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say anything because blah, blah, blah. I cannot be. That is the person on my you will not be on my team very long if that's how you are, right? Because people who celebrate when something fails, but they didn't do anything to stop that failure, those are not my people. The other thing in terms of tooting your own horn that's really important is not letting people take your ideas or take credit for your work. This is a space I see specifically a lot of women really struggle with. You'll be in a meeting and Lisa will say, the holiday weekend is going to be on X date. So we should really do our programming to coincide with it so we take advantage of the foot traffic. And everybody says, that's an interesting idea, Lisa. Craig, what do you think? All right, guys, go with me. Go with me, guys. I got this idea. All right, so, we've got this goal, right? We're gonna knock this out the park, guys. I know we are. I know we're gonna knock it out the park. But we got to take advantage of every opportunity. And so, if we could pick any day, why wouldn't we just do it on the holiday weekend? Because then, we have the foot traffic, we have our great initiative, we have the blah, 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 and then bam, it's magic. Now, what did Craig say that's different than what Lisa said?
Craig said it.
He sold it. He believed in it. He advocated for himself, but he said exactly the same thing. Will Lisa have the courage to say, Craig, that's great, Craig. Like, how does that differ than what I said? How does that differ from my suggestion? And not in a confrontational, argumentative way, but make him defend how his idea is different from your idea. we are very afraid to do that, right? We're hesitant to kind of say, yeah, no, you don't get to ride my coattails. You don't get to, yes, this was a group effort, but my portion was this, and my deliverable was X, right? I once worked on a group project where, let's say it was a 30-day period, and there are 5 of us on the team. And there's a guy who's selected to lead the team, because there's always a guy selected to lead the team, right? But he said everybody has their deliverables. They're part of the project. Everybody got their deliverables in the first 4 days. Now it's the deadline of day 29. And he's scrambling to assemble everything, to do his sections. He can't find everybody's email because he hasn't been doing his part of it. So he asks us all to resend what we sent him, okay? Because he can't find it, just to make sure it's all clear. Can y'all just resend it? So everybody obliges. Sure, happy to resend it. In the meeting, of course, he turns it in a day late. So the boss says, well, why is this late? Well, I mean, everybody just sent me their stuff 2 days ago. Now, what he said was factually true. We had sent it to him 2 days ago, but we actually really sent it to him 22 days ago. But he left out that part, right? The truth of the matter is that there is a scarcity and there is a competition in these work environments. And you have to be in charge of protecting your brand, and you can't be apologetic about it. Mm-hmm. Now, I will add to this, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. You have to figure out ways to be charming, to be engaging, to be likable. The truth of the matter is, being likable goes a long way. There are so many times I have cut somebody to shreds and I had a perfect smile on my face. Perfect smile, right? Because if you do good work, if you contribute so people know who you are and you're pleasant to work with, people will take your side in conflicts. That's been my experience. Now, if I don't know you, you never speak up, you're the quiet chick that sits in the corner, then when you finally say, yeah, no, that's not okay. I think you're angry. I think you're difficult. Who are you? I don't know you. And we underestimate the importance of knowing the people that we work with and building up a reputation with them that allows for us to be able to deal with things when they happen. Quite often, it takes a currency that we just don't have. We don't have a currency to go in and say, I've earned 73 cents in my bank, so I can come in here and spend 10 to handle Craig, taking my idea in this meeting, or handle this guy saying that my project was late when I know it wasn't late. I can spend that currency if I have it. But if I haven't banked it, I don't really, it can go either way, right? So I think it's really, really important to just find your voice. Find your voice, not just when it's a conflict, but find your voice when things are going great. That's going to give you the currency to handle those tough times that come up inevitably in a career.
So many gems. I mean, I wish that I knew you way back when, because a lot of the things you're talking about, I experience, and I have a viewpoint of there are styles that are popping up in there, whether you're introvert, extrovert, and your preference. That's showing up in there. Also the organization culture and acceptance, and the fact that some of us are taught how to have successful relationships and some of us aren't. So what you're talking about, that savvy, that career savvy, I feel like is wisdom that you build up over time, and that there are some people that are not going to know how to, I got you, Craig. I know exactly what I'm going to give to you and how I'm going to serve it to you nicely, because I'm dealing with my cultural upbringing and the challenges, and just trying to not be that angry Black woman or whoever I am to do negative damage to my brand. So
right. And I'll give you a really great example of that, right? So a lot of people, Black people in the South, and also Hispanic people, when they're raised to call their boss Mr. Jones or Miss Laura, out of respect, out of deference. But you have to observe. Does everyone else call him Mr. Jones, or do they call him Bob? Right. And even though that's not how you were raised, that's not how you think, you have to understand you are in a foreign country. This might as well be China. This might as well be, Vietnam, because it is an alien place, and you've got to pay attention to what everyone else does. It's because once you start calling them Miss Laura or Mr. Bob, they start treating you like a custodian. Right? Like you're the janitor, you're the help. And they didn't do that to you. You did that to you, because you're not watching the environment. You're not watching the signs, right? You've got to pay attention and adjust your behavior accordingly. And sometimes the way you think about things is not right. One of the first things I say whenever I get on stage is, if you want to be successful, the first thing you have to accept, don't believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you think. It's not right. You don't know. You don't know how to do everything there ever was. You don't know how to navigate every situation. You don't know this language. You don't know these people and how they think. So you've got to be an astute observer. You've got to learn how to ask great questions, and you've got to be able to establish relationships, because quite frankly, you need a tour guide. I didn't know how to negotiate severance. I was like, wait, they gonna give me money to leave? What do you mean? I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know that was a thing, right? Somebody had to sit with me and explain that to me, right? But you have to build those relationships, because you need a tour guide if you're going to navigate this beast of this corporate environment every single time. So I think it's just like this idea of release what you think this is and really make sure you're looking at it for what it really is, right? If I'm seeing people fight battles, pick small battles to fight and lose the war, then I'm going to say, whoa. Do I have to go to every battle I'm invited to? No. Right? And I have to be careful and be strategic about where I go in and how I go in. Right? So it's really being observant. I can't say that anymore. And being observant with the intent of allowing your behavior to change. Like they're not going to change for you. There's 10,000 people in this company. They've been doing this for 50 years. Like, they're probably not going to change for you. So when you pick an employer, you pick that environment. You're choosing that environment, and you got to take the time that it takes to learn it and to master it.
Wonderful. Well, as we begin to wrap up, my final question to you is, are there resources that you would recommend that you feel would be helpful to others on this journey of owning their career?
So many. Obviously, watch your work. I hope you guys will come and check out our library. We have over 7,000 videos, and we're always filming, always trying to get more perspectives in there. And that's why we started it. We started it so that we could democratize access to good information. I think you shouldn't have to have powerful friends to have powerful information, right? It's just, we should be able to just access it. The other thing I would take advantage of, especially during this period of COVID-19, is people are home. You'd be surprised who you can just reach out to on LinkedIn and get a 15-minute informational interview or have a conversation like we're having right now. Like, people are more receptive, they're more open because they're not as busy, they got more flexibility. I would do that. Connect to people in your space, in your industry, build those relationships. Jump on a happy hour with a coworker. Like, we don't do that as much as, just we're having Zoom happy hours with our friends. But are we really doing it with Larry from accounting? Hey man, how's it going? Like, what's happening with your life? How's homeschooling going? Like, don't underestimate the importance of continuing to build those relationships, because 6 months from now, you're going to need Larry to help you with a problem, right? And it's good to have those relationships. So I think just have a real keen eye to continuing to develop your network. Think about, like, a project I'm working on right now is how you can help. Like it's literally an email I'm sending to my network of, here's everything I'm working on, and there's some key ways I need some help. So maybe you'll look at this list and there's nothing on this list you can help me with, but maybe there's 3 things on there. You're like, oh yeah, I can do that, right? But again, it's asking people, it's letting them know how they can help you and what that would look like, and continuing to sharpen your skill set. Be a beast. People love a beast, honey. So be a beast. Be amazing at what you're doing. And that's going to create the foundation for you to just fly.
Wonderful. This has been an amazing interview. I know that our listeners have benefited greatly from this interview. Thank you so much, Denise, for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. Please tell our listeners how they can stay connected with you.
Oh, usual spot, watchherwork.com. I invite everyone to join the mailing list. We're doing incredible things right now. But then also follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at officialdham is my personal, and where I get really rowdy, and at Watch Her Work TV. At Watch Her Work TV is the business. So we invite you to follow us both places, and join the conversation. Reach out, like let's talk and share best practices. I think we go further together.
Love it. You've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or 2 about it.